This demonstration is going to illustrate how to install Zipper Tubing's PRT heat shrinkable tubing. The zippertubing.com website has a full write-up installation instruction on PRT tubing and how to work with it, digital pictures, and this video demonstration just supplements this document. You definitely want to use this document when you're training and learning how to use PRT. It is similar to working with standard heat shrink tubing, but there are a few differences that are important to note. PRT tubing is really nothing more than standard 23053 slant 5 polyolefin heat shrink tubing. It's been split longitudinally, and a pressure sensitive adhesive, transfer adhesive, has been applied along one edge. The first thing you're going to do when making a PRT installation is to measure the cable diameter that you have. Now, I've already done that. This cable, when compressed, is right around 5/8 of an inch. It's important that you measure the diameter, because what you want to do is go to the sizing chart and find the cable diameter. In this case, 5/8 to 3/4 is a number 6 size, and you will need to have that number to order material and pull it off from your inventory. This is a sample of number 6, and I simply cut it off the spool with a pair of scissors. PRT is very easy to work with. You would like to, get a decent cut, but unlike standard heat shrink tubing, if you have a small snag, the material, it's not critical. Zipper tubing PRT does not have a tendency to split like standard heat shrink tubing. In fact, you can cut notches and windows out of the tubing and without fear of it splitting open on you while you're heat shrinking it. The other thing you're going to need is a hot air heat gun. This one has the adjustable temperature control on the back. You don't absolutely have to have that. You would like to have a heat gun that can generate around 40 to 50 degrees C. The tubing begins shrinking at around 90 degrees C and will ultimately shrink quite well in the 120 to 130 degrees C range. You also will need a narrow nozzle type attachment for your heat gun, not a tubing reflector that is very common with heat shrink tubing, because one of the main differences of PRT is that you want to apply the heat selectively in the beginning to the adhesive overlap area. This sets the adhesive, and the bond strength of the adhesive joint will approximately double upon cooling. So having a control device like a nozzle like this to concentrate the heat at the adhesive overlap is very critical. Once you've selected your tubing size and cut the piece to fit, you simply wrap the tubing around the cable. Probably the most important thing you can do is take your time. PRT tubing will save you so much time relative to disassembling a cable with connectors on it to get the piece of tubing where you want it, that there's really no need to rush. You wrap the tubing around the cable so that the paper release liner covering the adhesive is facing you. Peel the adhesive release liner off the adhesive back about an inch or so, and overlap the non-adhesive edge, and you'd like to get just all of the adhesive covered. You don't want to cover much more than that. Once you get it started, just continue along. If you get any minor wrinkles in the tubing while you're applying it, don't worry. They will disappear upon shrinking, but generally, if you do due diligence, you ought to be able to get it together without too many wrinkles. And just continue to peel the adhesive back. And once you get a little bit of distance going, it somewhat self-aligns. And when you're done, you come back and rub the adhesive joint with your thumb. Work it down nice to make sure it's stuck all the way around. Now at this point you can move the tubing around wherever you want it. If you need to locate it, install it in one location, then slide it into your location, that's fine too. After you have that done, I'm going to turn your heat gun on. And like I said, it's not totally critical as far as the temperature, but you don't want to go too extreme. Now once you have the narrow nozzle, you want to turn the tubing facing you so that you're going to pour the heat limited to the adhesive or the tubing overlap. And I like to start back a little ways from the end, because as you apply heat, the overlap is going to wrinkle up. It's going to look like it's going to pull apart. The truth of the matter is, this is normal, and just continue to apply the heat to the overlap area only, nowhere else. And this one isn't wrinkling up too bad, but now the main reason that you apply the heat locally over the overlap is that the tubing is double thick there. The entire adhesive overlap area shrinks. So it takes a lot of heat to get through the outer layer and to shrink the inner layer. In fact, many customers will get to this point and let the part cool off completely. What you'd like to do is shrink the rest of the tubing after this overlap area is cooled slightly. If you've been very diligent in sizing it correctly, you can go ahead and start applying heat elsewhere, because PRT is designed to not have a lot of stress left in it, and it won't tend to pull the adhesive joint apart. If you've undersized it and you apply heat all the way around the product while the adhesive overlap area is hot, it may tend to pull itself apart. So it's real important that you measure your bundle size and have the correct size tubing. Now this is cooled down. It's still hot, but it isn't red hot by any means. I'm going to continue to apply heat and continue to shrink the remainder of the tubing circumference. Now there's a spot here, it looks like it's raised up. You can touch that with your finger. In fact, you got to be careful while it's hot, you don't burn yourself because it's sticky. But if it tends to lift off, just tap it back down a little bit. And you want to continue to apply heat to make sure you don't have any fish eyes or cold spots in the tubing, and it looks like it's recovered fully. And when I look at it, I want to come back and lightly tap the edge to make sure it's down, and it looks pretty good. Now if you wanted to bend the cable or something, now's a good time to put a little bend in it if necessary. You can also shrink it on a cable going around a corner. It just depends on your application. In this case, the material is still pretty hot but if you notice that there's a little, maybe an 1/8 inch of adhesive exposed here.